public lecture is about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, we kindly invite you to occupy the designated seats. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to our Lebaran Institut Teknologi Bandung. Today, Wednesday, 15 October 2014, we are going to have public lecture with the Ambassador of the Kingdom of Belgium, Mr.Patrick Herman, with the topic of the European Union and action through the Belgium experience. This event is part of the Studium Generale course. To begin, we are going to have a welcoming remark from Rector of Institut Teknologi Bandung. We kindly invite Professor Ahmad Lokani, PhD, to deliver the speech.
Bismillah. Excellencies, Ambassador Patrick Herman, the Ambassador for the Kingdom of Belgium, Bapak Ibu, Anda dekan, Anda wakil dekan, adik-adik, para mahasiswa, good morning, selamat pagi, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, of course, we would like to give appreciation for the Excellency's Ambassador who's already come to us here in his busiest times. The Excellency, the Ambassador, still come to us and would like to share with all of you, the students in ITB, concerning about the ASEAN community and also probably European community. Excellency is the course with some credit semester course. We call it Studium Generale. Usually, who give a course here, or the lectures, or the speakers, is for the external of ITB. It's not for our internal staff member. So there is some minister of the Republic of Indonesia, and also the Commission of Anti-Corruption, and many other. And for this year, we would like to have a share also for the what I mean is some embassies, probably Belgium, Japan, and some from Middle East, some from US. The ambassador of US is also already give us some lecture in here as well. So now, in my apology, Excellency, I would like to talk to my student in Indonesia. So in Indonesia, adik-adik, mahasiswa. Jadi hari ini kita mulai barangkali kuliah umumnya atau kuliah studium generalnya pakai bahasa Inggris, ya, karena Excellency Ambassador is just 2 months, ya, baru 2 bulan, jadi belum bisa bahasa Indonesia. Mungkin mengerti sedikit bahasa Indonesia. Nah, nanti beliau punya pengalaman banyak, sudah pernah di Amerika, pernah di mana-mana, ya. Saya kira share dari beliau itu bisa sangat baik untuk mengupdate informasi-informasi yang ada pada kita. Jadi nanti walaupun dalam bahasa Inggris, pertanyaan boleh bahasa Indonesia kan Pak Darso, ya? Pak Darso yang akan jadi moderator dekan Sekolah Bisnis dan Manajemen. Kalau kemudian sulit, tapi itu boleh kita bahasa Indonesia. Nanti biar Pak Darso akan translate it in English pun. Okay? So I think I don't want to talk too much here. otherwise give some lectures as well. So thank you, Excellencies, and saya kira terima kasih ke semua yang telah hadir, and thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, now we are going to have a public lecture delivered by the Ambassador of the Kingdom of Belgium with the topic of Belgium, the ASEAN community and the EU internal market. This lecture session will be directed by Mr. Sudarso. We kindly invite His Excellency Mr. Patrick Herman and Mr. Sudarso to begin.
Okay, thank you. Excellencies, Mr. Patrick Herman, Honorable our Rector, my Vice Rector, our colleagues of the lecturer, and my beloved student of ITB. Good morning and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. This is a very honor for us that today we receive Excellencies, the Ambassador of the Royal Belgium, Mr. Patrick Herman, to deliver his lecture, the Studium Generale today, with the topic of Belgium, the ASEAN community, and the European Union of internal market. This is very interesting topic, and we have 2 hours, Excellencies. 1 hour to present your materials, and then we discuss question and answer for about 1 hour. Okay, please.
Dear Rector, thank you very much. Dear Dean, thank you to you as well. Dear professors, member of ITV Academic Corps, and most of all, dear students, it's a genuine honor and privilege for me to have been invited to give this lecture today, especially that I am in one of the oldest, one of the most respected places of learning in Indonesia that exists, I understand, for almost a century, and I've been an ambassador for almost a day. I had the pleasure and the joy to present my credentials to President SB Yudhoyono a little over 24 hours ago. So I am very new, so the only thing I could share with you about Indonesia would be my ignorance. That is the reason why I decided to talk about a subject that you may find interesting, because especially for your generation of students, trade and the economy is going to be a major challenge. This country, Indonesia, I haven't been there very long, I told you, but I think everyone agrees is on the verge of possible great achievements from an economic point of view. It will depend on a generation that will have to show its inventiveness, its entrepreneurship, its sense of business, and this generation is you. So I'm very honored to speak in front of the Rector, I'm very honored to speak in front of the Dean and the professors, but most of all, I'm very honored to speak in front of the students who are going to build tomorrow's Indonesia and bring Indonesia where it should always have been, which is one of the 5 or 6 largest economies in the world over the next 20 years. One tool that will help Indonesia achieve that fate, achieve that position in the international economic rankings will be trade. It will be trade within Indonesia, facilitating trade between the different regions, because we are going to talk about the European internal market, what we used to call the common market, the single market, which is about being able to move goods, to move services, to move people, to move talent, to move knowledge from one end to another end of a continent, a region, a country. But even within our own countries, we have to make sure that that market exists, and it hasn't been achieved. Probably in most countries in the world, achieving an internal market is something that still is work in progress, because you need infrastructures, you need roads, you need, of course, the electronic highways as well. You need also the language, you need the skills, you need the possibility to move. So achieving our own national internal market, also passing beyond what still exists as regional barriers to trade. The second dimension, of course, is the regional one. I'm going to tell you about the internal market. It's an adventure that started in Europe almost 60 years ago. But this country, Indonesia, is about also to embark on a very, very important economic and trade journey, which is going to be the ASEAN community as it was designed in the blueprint that was adopted almost 5 years ago at the ASEAN Summit. And that will be essential for this country to reach its whole potential. And of course, the rest of the world. WTO, in which Indonesia, of course, is a very active party, but also trading with other regions of the world. And I'm very happy that we could, a few months ago, celebrate between the European Union and Indonesia the entry into force of the Cooperation Partnership Agreement, but of course a free trade agreement between the European Union and Indonesia would be a win-win for both economies, and would be a very important step forward for Indonesia in the world, as will be free trade agreements that are currently being finalized or currently being negotiated by the Indonesian Ministry of Trade and other Indonesian government departments. I feel very much at home here at ITB Bandung. As the director rightly said, I have only been in the country for 2 months, only been the ambassador of Belgium for 2 days. But I've been here once before. This is the first university I visited in this country a month and a half ago, at the invitation of Dean Sudar. So it is very dear to my heart. I feel very much at home, and I'm not the only Belgian person to feel very much at home. We were discussing that again. There are projects currently being carried out with, if I'm not mistaken, the University of Antwerp, the Catholic University of Leuven, with the University of Liège, in a number of extremely important domains, not the least in biotechnologies, in chemistry, and in a number of infrastructure. And it's not only about having universities cooperating together, and I hope that a lot of you will in the future have the occasion to enjoy some of these programs, and why not some of you be on assignment for some time in a Belgian university like Antwerp, Leuven or Liège. But it is very important also for universities to increasingly work with the private sector. Spin-offs of ITB working with spin-offs of Belgian universities, working also with companies from Belgium and elsewhere in the world. And we have, for instance, one of our major and most technologically advanced groups in Belgium, the DEME group. They're in dredging and in marine infrastructure and technologies, also working and being interested in ITB. So this is very familiar for me, but maybe Belgium is slightly less familiar for you as ITB is for me. So I will briefly, before telling you about something I'm sure you're all very much interested in, which is the ASEAN internal market and the European community, or the ASEAN community and the European internal market. It can be either ways, but say maybe a few words about my country. especially I think perfect. Especially that I think that the figures are very telling. You couldn't compare Belgium and the Republic of Indonesia. Of course, it doesn't show on the map, but in the Kingdom of Belgium would be 30,000 square kilometers, which would more or less be the size of the island of Timor. Timor and Timor-Leste together. That would be the size of Belgium. So Belgium in itself is, for instance, much smaller than Java Island, and of course even much more smaller than the larger islands in the archipelago. You can't either compare the populations of Belgium and in the Republic of Indonesia, because in Belgium we have a population of 11 million, which I imagine, and I hope I'm not just sharing my ignorance, but would be something like the greater Jakarta put together. So Belgium has a population the size of a major city in Indonesia, but not larger than that. As far as the people are concerned, I do think that beyond the fact that you're 24 times more populous as a nation than we are, we have quite a lot in common. And I think especially being very welcoming, very practical, and as I understand for people knowing both countries very well, a reputation of being friendly and being rather informal. And if you allow me, I will be rather informal as well, proving my point. So maybe that would be one of the common points, but of course another one would be the size of the economy. Until not that long ago, Belgium, despite it being very small and not very populated, was among the 20 largest economies in the world. We could, at the moment the G20 was formed, we could have pretended being in it as the 20th or the 19th largest economy in the world. It didn't happen because, as you know, and it was the case, Western Europe and the Western world in general were overrepresented already in the G20, which needed to be a representative body of the world's 5 continents. So it was a good thing, but we were until not that long ago the 20th largest economy in the world. And we're still one of the 10 largest exporters in the world. So when I started my career as a diplomat, that was 25 years ago, Belgium's foreign trade was larger than China's foreign trade. That is the extent of what foreign trade represents for Belgium. And moreover, of course, we had in those days, and until not that recently, an economy with a size comparable to the one in Indonesia. This is, of course, was an aberration of history. It was irony of history that a country as small as Belgium would have had 5 or 10 years ago an economy comparable to the one of the Republic of Indonesia. Now things are becoming normal again. I understand that Indonesia has around the 10th economy in the world, the 16th depending on the size, but reading Goldman Sachs or the WTO or the World Economic Forum's literature, as I said, it will soon be where it belongs, which is in the top 6 or the top 5, the largest economies in the world. In the same vein, Belgium is not the 20th largest economy in the world. We're probably the 23rd, the 24th, and probably before long, 2050, for instance, according to most studies, we would drop out the top 30 of economies in the world, which is only normal, as the place we were occupying were only due to an injustice of history to blame on the 19th century history. But comparable as far as the size of the economies are concerned. And I can find another common point is that Brussels is the capital city of Europe. Brussels is the city in Europe. You see it there in the middle in brown, red. Is the city in Europe where the European institutions are. It is the place where Europe is being built by the European Council, the European Commission, the European Parliament, and other institutions based there. And that is, of course, something in common with Indonesia as the host city in Jakarta of ASEAN. So very much being the capital of Europe, it's something that has been rather accidental, but also something that reflects the mind and the political setup of my country, which has long been described in political science, for instance, by the famous Dutch researcher Arend Leipart, as the place where the consensational political system or way of working together developed, and which is a system that has been inspiring, that has been affecting in a positive way the the European Union and the internal market have grown. One of the reasons why I want to talk about the internal market, beyond the fact that it's something that I've been involved in earlier jobs, is that even though I haven't been very long in Indonesia, I've been traveling extensively in the region over the past few years with my minister, and understood that there was a certain skepticism compared to the European Union project, compared to what the European Union has achieved, and as far as the future of the European Union is concerned. I would lie if I said that the European Union has been having a great time since the 2008 Wall Street financial meltdown. We have to cope with a very difficult fiscal situation, a very difficult financial situation, also with a loss of competitiveness and with a number of tensions between member states. But I don't think, certainly not to the extent that a number of mainstream magazines and broadsheet newspapers, especially in the Anglo-Saxon world, are describing. The European Union is an adventure that has always been advancing for short periods of time, and then knowing for long periods of time periods of adjustment. It's a project that has been going forward through different crises, and I will finish later today my presentation by defending the position that actually the crisis that the European Union has been witnessing, has been going through since 2008, has made it not weaker but stronger. The adventure of the European Union and the project of ASEAN have a number of things in common, not the least the fact that they will be based on the work of a committee of permanent representatives, that they share a number of institutions, but also that the blueprint for the ASEAN community is very much inspired, at least, by one element of the European construction, namely the internal market. But besides that, they're both from a legal point of view and from a praxis point of view, from an economic point of view, sui generis constructions and projects with very little in common, except that they reflect the culture of their members, and that those cultures vary widely from Europe to Southeast Asia. So the ASEAN community is going to be an internal market, or what we used to call a common market. It will share a number of features, but it will not share most of the features, because the European Union has grown from early on a free trade zone, then to a customs union. From a customs union it has evolved to a common market. It has evolved to a single market, but the difference is very small. I never really understood it. Then to an internal market, we just were changing names and not very much content. But then we have become an economic and monetary union at the turn of the century, being maybe not the first one, but one of the first group of countries to give itself a common currency. It has been a roller coaster of an experience with difficult periods, but the euro has achieved at least becoming the second largest currency in the world after the dollar, and a major player in financial markets and in international trade. We have now to evolve to a fiscal union and a banking union, and that will be one of the largest developments. What has happened over the past few years, the European Union has changed. We had the Lisbon Treaty, and we are at a very important moment. But one thing that has been achieved and that will not be taken away is the origin and what we share with the ASEAN, which is what somehow Baroness Catherine Ashton once described as the common DNA between ASEAN and the European Union. And that common DNA is that we were both institutions that have been growing from a project that developed after years of war, years of civil war in a number of countries, years of regional war, after also 2 world wars, and in Europe, certainly the most terrible genocide probably ever committed, then the World War, and the 2 superpowers waging war by proxy in Europe and in Southeast Asia. So we, more probably that NATO and that the short-lived Seattle project, the European Union and ASEAN are products of the Second World War, of course, liberation, decolonization wars as far as ASEAN is concerned, and the Cold War. And that is, despite all the critics, what Europe has achieved. If you look back at the history of Europe, since Alexander the Great, or even further, it has been a succession of wars, 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 and more wars. The German against the French, the British against the German, the Swedes against their neighbors, the Germans against the Danes, the Italians against themselves. We've all been waging war on each other for centuries and millennia. And since the European Union project was launched after the Second World War, Europe has lived in peace. Maybe not always in harmony, but certainly in peace and understanding. So even if you hear critics say the euro doesn't work, the euro is doomed, there are tensions between Germany and France, you can't find in Europe that common position, that common project. Europe is a failure. As long as we haven't had a third large war in Europe, we will have to admit that the European Union is achieving its goal, which is to establish peace on a continent that's always been subject to the most terrible conflicts. The European Union for that received the Nobel Peace Prize in 2012. It has achieved a lot in the way of reaching the goals of its original founding fathers. At the end of the Second World War, the project was to establish peace not through war, not just through treaties that may or may not last, but to establish peace through integrating the steel sector, through integrating the energy sector. In those days it was coal mostly, to integrate the agricultural sector and to integrate external trade, and it has been working. Those achievements have not only established peace, but also a lot of progress economically. Europe has been growing steadily thanks to peace, but also thanks to economic integration. Consumer protection has been a major success of the European Union. Integration as far as education is concerned, exchange of students, free movement not only of goods but also of services, capitals, and people. And another measure of the success of the European Union, despite the sometimes negative assessment that can be heard here and there, is that Europe is becoming larger and larger. We have been growing a lot since 1951, and not the least over the past few years. 10 countries joined the European Union in 2005, including 3 countries that had been occupied for half a century by the Soviet Union, the Baltic states. It's been joined since then by Croatia last year. It has been now received candidatures, of course, from Turkey, but also from Serbia, and is working in a closer and closer fashion with other countries on its eastern border, on its eastern partnership, like Georgia, Moldova, the Ukraine. And we come there also to a major concern for us in the European Union, which has been the occupation and the aggression against the Ukraine, a country that was choosing its path towards regional integration, either to the east or to the west, but whose attempts to find agreements and economic cooperation with its neighbors have been unfortunately met by what is currently the occupation of a large part of its territory. And of course the European Union has very much appreciated being joined by Indonesia at the United Nations to request and to defend the principle of the territorial integrity of peaceful Ukraine. Many countries joining, more countries wanting to join. Since the Treaty of Lisbon, the member states of the European Union are allowed to leave the Union. When we founded the European Union in 1957 with the Treaty of Rome, it was a very, very strange choice that was made in those days, that we would have a treaty integrating 6 countries, among them Belgium, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, into a larger union, into a larger cooperation, without having any provision for one country to leave the European common market, later to leave the European community than the European Union. This has changed, and maybe, as some of you know, the UK may or may not leave the European Union. We hope it won't be the case. We've been, of course, as Europeans, very happy that Scotland didn't choose to leave the UK very recently, which would also have meant for Scotland to leave the European Union, because there is no right for a part of a member state to become a member state itself if it separates from the rest of that state. So Scotland is not going to leave the UK or the European Union, and hopefully, but as the rector knows, I'm married to a Brit and my children are British, so I hope personally, but we all hope in the European Union, that the UK will not be doing, will make the same choice during the referendum to remain in a larger and closer union. Actually, to be absolutely fair, one country once left the common market, and it was Algeria, that was a part of France when it left France in 1962, and then the European Union. Belgium has always been part of whatever somehow attempt to integrate economies and countries in Europe is concerned. If you go back to the history of Europe, the European Union is not the first attempt to put together the economies. It goes very far back in history, through, of course, the Holy Roman German Empire. In a way, Switzerland, for instance, not that far away from us, was a number of countries decided to get together and form a larger union. We had the Zollverein in Central Europe in the 19th century. We had the Hansabund in Northern Europe, to which Antwerp in Belgium was a part. So we were never very far when those integrations were happening or trying to happen in Europe. But unfortunately, what we were really at the center of is whenever there was an attempt on the European continent to unify, to integrate the different countries and the different economies through a violent fashion. This has been, of course, Julius Caesar, who fought the Belgians a very long time ago and said that we were the bravest, or according to some other translations from Latin, that we were the most ferocious and fierce. On the Napoleonic Wars, that won an adventure of conquering the continent by violence that ended up exactly 2 centuries ago, or almost exactly 2 centuries ago, in Waterloo in Belgium, a place that your president, as he told me yesterday, visited 3 times as a general with a passion for military history, one of the most interesting and most historical battles in the history of Europe. World War I, it was a century ago that it started, and it started in Belgium, and we were one of the countries that suffered the most, not least of the first chemical warfare. And we are celebrating that century this year. And World War II, of course, with the Battle of the Bulge being fought as the last great battle on the Western Front, exactly 70 years ago in December. So we've always been the battlefield, we've always been the victim of the way Europeans were fighting each other, on the way the economic interests, and mostly through the beggar my neighbor policies of some countries, through competitive devaluations, through nationalism and colonialism, were attempting to take the lead in Europe. It always finished with people fighting on our territory. So that would explain also why, as Belgium, we've always been probably the keenest Europeans to achieve peace through economic integration, and that happened just after the Second World War, when Belgium, the Netherlands and Luxembourg created the Benelux Union from 1945-1948. The Benelux was the first blueprint for the European Union, was the first global economic integration to be achieved. The Benelux grew into the European Community for Steel and Coal in 1951. Then again into the European Community through the Treaty of Rome, but a treaty that was negotiated at the Val-Duchesse Castle in Brussels in 1957. Belgian politicians and statesmen like Paul Henri Henri Jaspar, Pierre Herman, Leo Tindemans, and Herman Van Rompuy, the current president of the European Council, have been reflecting that will of Belgium to contribute to peace through integration, through the Benelux, through the European Union, NATO, of course, and the UN, as Paul Henri was both one of the founding fathers of Europe, but also the first Speaker of the General Assembly of the United Nations and the first Secretary General of NATO. Paul Henri, who died now probably 40 years ago, is also the man who said about Europe, there are two different types of countries in Europe. There are the countries that are small, and no they are, and countries that are also small and haven't discovered it yet. Because in Europe, you only have small countries. Some very small, like Belgium, but none of us would have the necessary size to achieve being a global actor when, as I said earlier, Brazil, when China, as it is already the case, when India, when Indonesia take their rightful place in the community of nations. And that is probably also a difference between the EU and ASEAN, with the central place in the way of population and economy that is occupied by Indonesia in the Southeast Asian integration. The Asian way of integration, as I said, is much more informal than the EU regional construction. We have based our model on a political will to share sovereignty, to forfeit some of the inherent rights of a sovereign country, to build common institutions that will oversee the integration process, but also that will be able to enforce it, that will be able to impose sanctions on the different member states it represents that are, as far as the European Court of Justice is concerned, will be able to sentence the member states if they do not abide by their obligations, by what they have committed to. So we have in the European Union a supranational legal order with well-established enforcement mechanism. The Asian way of integration, as I said, is much more informal. The institutional structure is much thinner, even though I understand now with the ASEAN community in 2015, the Secretary General in Jakarta will need to be beefed up and reinforced. The signing of the ASEAN Charter in 2007 started an adventure similar, as I said, to the European Union, but also embracing a number of security objectives, such as to keep Southeast Asia free of all weapons of mass destruction, but the decision-making continues to be consensual without any supranational character or an elaborate enforcement, compulsory, mandatory enforcement system. Also, even though there is an interparliamentary assembly in ASEAN so far, the legislative part of the supervision and the oversight has not been as developed. The European model, as I said, is often criticized, but probably also inspirational for other parts of the world. I don't think only of ASEAN, but we have COMESA in Africa, Mercosur in Latin America. You have now, of course, the Gulf Cooperation Council. You have on the Latin American continent a very successful now integration on the Pacific coast of Latin America with Mexico, with Colombia, with Chile, the Pacific Alliance. But so far, definitely the European Union and ASEAN are the most sophisticated, the most advanced and the most successful regional integration projects that there have ever been. The ambition of the ASEAN Economic Community, AEC, is something that needs to be stressed and needs to be noted. Building a single market, we've been through that, is difficult. One very difficult part, and that will be very important for you students, for instance, is the recognition of professional qualification. What will allow you tomorrow in the ASEAN Economic Community to be a lawyer in Malaysia, to be a doctor in Singapore, to be a nurse in Laos or in Vietnam. And that is a very important thing, but also probably one of the most costly, one of the most lengthy, one of the most tedious, in a way, aspects of creating a single market. The building common infrastructures, we've been there through the TENS, the Trans-European Network, and this is something that will be very important for ASEAN. You need to integrate your network if you want to integrate a region. You can't have a region of people who do not communicate, of people who do not travel, but you can't have an economic integrated region if energy, if raw materials, if goods are not able and not only allowed, but also physically able to be transported for one part of the region to another. And this is, of course, also the case as far as electronic communications are concerned. Connectivity is at the center of the ASEAN Economic Community project. It's something we are working together, the European Union and ASEAN. It is going to be also for your generation one of the main challenges. You are the most connected generation globally that this world has ever had. In Indonesia, you are probably also one of the most connected generation that has ever been, with mind-boggling figures of connection to Facebook, connection to Twitter, connection, and that's because I'm an old man. I know Facebook and Twitter and I sort of get lost in all the others. But from what I understand, it is also somewhere where Indonesia is a trailblazer in this region and where Indonesia has to carry on pulling the ASEAN region, because the key to the success in tomorrow's world will be to be connected as an individual, but also as a region, and this will be a major challenge for ASEAN. Free movement of goods, free movement of services. I was, for my country, the negotiator for what was called the Services Directive, trying to allow workers to move from one country to another, to build a factory, to build houses, to be a plumber, to be a thatcher. And this has been very difficult in Europe. The negotiation has been the hardest and the most painful ever. The Services Directive came out of the Council and the Parliament that adopt legislations in Europe in a very battered way. But services, free movement of services is important and will be important for this region. But of course, you will have to integrate the services market to go beyond the protection of national interest and to go beyond a number of social sacrifices. In Europe, it was described as the danger of the Polish plumber, because the plumbing industry was very successful in Poland with costs of labor that were very low, and there was all over Europe, or the westernmost part of the European Union, a mobilization against the Services Directive, thinking that all the Polish plumbers would leave their country and come and take the jobs of the Belgian plumbers, the French plumbers, the Spanish plumbers. The Services Directive has passed. This hasn't happened. So one thing in regional integration that we've learned in the internal market is that the fears are always there. The social hardship is always there, but it's never as bad as people expect. And moreover, even when it's bad, the internal market has always been a strong driver for creating jobs. So if you integrate in services, you will lose jobs here and there, but you will create many more jobs that you actually sacrifice. It's not easy to do, it's not easy to say, because the jobs that will be created will not be necessarily the jobs for the people who've lost them. So you will create hardship, you will break families, you will break careers, you will break the lives of a number of people, but you will create employment, create jobs, create perspective for many more. So once again, the balance to strike between the social implications and the economic gain is something that has to be measured and that has to be accompanied, which is what Europeans have been doing by also instilling a social dimension to the internal market, a very important social dimension. Investment, it is very important that investment would be able to travel freely within the region and between regions, and there I think we all appreciate also the great ambition that your soon-to-be president has presented for BKPM here in Indonesia. Indonesia needs investment from all over the world, needs investment from Indonesia. Indonesian investors are the first ones to be convinced to invest in Indonesia, but you also need investment from the rest of the region. And that is part of the ASEAN Economic Community that will give you a framework to achieve that. Skilled labor, it is very important, not only the free movement of researchers, not only the free movement of talent, but the free movement of workers, what we call the posting of worker, a very important aspect. Also, the free flow of capital, and of course a common vision for industrial policy and a common vision for an increased competitiveness that can only be achieved through more innovation, through places of learning and invention like ITV and its spin-offs, and the ASEAN has its Vision 2020, and in Europe we have our EU 2020 as well. Giving yourself objectives, giving yourself deadlines is very important, and is what ASEAN Economic Community is achieving currently. The internal market has been in Europe has been built in a very strange way. So we have been building it by two different fashions. The first one is harmonization, because if you start with a free trade area, you open your borders and you can have a free movement of goods. And then you create a customs union and a common market. But you can't really create a common market if not everyone is playing with the same rules. You can't have something that would be at the same time a football match and a basketball match and a tennis match. You can't have people playing with a net, some having a racket, hitting the ball with a racket, the others hitting the ball with their feet, the others throwing the ball. And that is what happens if you create a customs union without having everyone to play with the same rules. Everyone plays with a racket, everyone plays with a hockey stick, everyone plays with a bat, but everyone abides by the same rules. So you need to harmonize. You need to be able, people need to be able to know that what they are buying, what they are consuming is very much what they expect. That you wouldn't have one of the countries in the internal market producing something that is called red wine, or that is called goat cheese, and that would be completely different. You can't have goat cheese describing 10 different realities. So we did work in harmonizing almost every type of good through a different number of directives. This is very tedious. This takes a lot of time. You imagine how many type of different products are produced in the European Union, a region of 500 million people. Harmonizing all of that is a lot of work on which we are working, but also with the process I described of having a court of justice that can interpret the treaty, and that can also take decisions that will be directly enforceable. We had in the internal market in the European Union what was called the Cassis de Dijon. Cassis de Dijon is a drink that is made in Dijon. It's a city in central France. And the Cassis de Dijon was being produced in France and couldn't be exported to a number of other countries that had their own regulations on what could or would be Cassis de Dijon, that berry-based fruit drink. And one day the European Court of Justice decided, having been seized by the producers of Cassis de Dijon, to decide that whatever product would be in free circulation could be sold in one of the then 6 EU countries would always be allowed, should always be allowed to be sold in the other 5 countries. So by creating that in actually the European Court of Justice, where we were trying to build harmonization for different goods, from the cheese, for the bananas, that was a very famous one, the curve of bananas, for sausages, for bread, suddenly decided in one go that it would actually level everything and fill all the gaps with that jurisprudence of the Cassis de Dijon. Whatever is produced in one of the countries and can be sold in that country should be allowed to be exported, to be sold all over the European Union. This was an absolutely revolutionary principle, and it was made by the Court of Justice in the Cassis de Dijon jurisprudence. Harmonization then did lose all or most of its purpose. Where would it remain? Well, because the judges said if you produce something in one of the countries, it can be recognized everywhere. We call it the internal market clause. Some countries would still be allowed for security reasons, hygiene reasons, protection of consumer, protection of health and safety, to prohibit one or the other country from other product from other member states to be imported. But that would be the exception, only if that country had good public health or good security, consumer protection reasons to do so, and harmonization would then only be used to overcome those barriers left by those trade restrictions that would have survived the Cassis de Dijon mandatory requirement test. Other very groundbreaking decisions by the European Court of Justice was Banfield and Lowe's and Costa versus Enel, where the court decided that actually European law would take precedence on the national law. So whatever was decided at the EU level would be directly applicable, directly enforceable in the rest of the internal all the countries on the internal market. And of course, we had one of the famous arrests for us in Belgium was the Bosman arrest, because he was a football player, he was a star of the football club, the Liège Football Club. And he went to the Court of Justice to say that as a footballer he should be allowed to play football wherever he wanted to in the European Union. And the Bosman arrest also turned football, my favorite sport, and I imagine the favorite sport of a number of you, turned football into a service that can circulate freely on the internal market. The Single Market Act in 1987 led to almost 300 pieces of legislation being adopted in 6 years between 1986 and 1992. The single market was, of course, extended numerous times through the different enlargements of the European Union, Austria, Finland and Sweden in 1995, Cyprus, the Czech Republic and 8 other countries in 2004, then Bulgaria and Romania last year, Croatia. This is a very, very important step. More steps are coming in 2009. President Barroso entrusted Mario Monti, the former president of Bocconi University in Italy and the former commissioner for the internal market, to write a report. We are now working on a relaunch of the single market and the second Single Market Act. The internal market is something that will never really be achieved. This is the case for the ASEAN Economic Community. This is the case for Europe. The Eurozone has been going through turbulent times, I said, challenging its proper functioning and its integrity. But what we have seen since 2008 and since the crisis erupted in the US and affected a number of European countries through large fiscal deficits and the difficulty to go to the international debt market. What we need to say is that the problem we've been experiencing in Europe since 2008 is not that Europe is the problem, is that Europe is the solution. What happens is not that we had too much Europe that would have created the crisis and the Euro crisis, but that we had too little Europe. Because you can't have a single market, you can't have a free movement of capital and goods if you don't have a common fiscal policy. So the next thing, what we need in Europe to achieve now, and my minister is pushing very hard for that, is the next steps. It's to have a common banking union, to have a common fiscal union, that countries, you can't have a monetary union if some countries run deficits of 10% of their GDP and some countries have a surplus or run very small deficits. You have to have conversions, but conversions was not enough because the Stability and Growth Pact didn't work because the larger countries, France and Germany, were allowed to have deficits well beyond the 3% that you are abiding by normally in the region and that we are supposed to abide by in Europe. So not less Europe, but more Europe. And for those who say that the European Union has been, and I finished there, has been experiencing hard times since 2008, no, we've had since 2008 the most productive and the most efficient period of law making and legislating at the European level. We created enormous funds, monetary funds that allowed to save and bail out a number of countries like Cyprus, like Portugal, like Ireland, like Greece. It was done, those billions and billions of euros. You had countries accepting to commit them, not for themselves, but by solidarity for other countries. We had the 3 packs, we had the 6 packs, we have the banking union. So the European Union, starting from the single market, has been building up towards what will be a tax union, because you also need to have harmonization on taxes, a fiscal union. The path that ASEAN and Indonesia are going to take is going to be very different, because this part of the world has different needs and has different talents. But certainly, from the experience of the internal market, wherever the ASEAN economic community is going to lead you to, the adventure of creating an internal market for goods, services, students, talents, is the most enriching, the most useful economically, and for having participated in it in Europe, the most exciting economic adventure that one can have. And I wish and I hope that a lot of you will, as diplomats, as researchers, as entrepreneurs, as civil servants, be able to participate in the great adventure that the AEC is going to be for Indonesia and the rest of ASEAN starting in October 2015. Good luck in your regional integration. It was a great honor to be able to address you. I wish to apologize for having been so long, and I'm now ready to be even longer in case you would have questions to ask about the European Union, the internal market, or any other subjects. Thank you very much. Terima kasih.
Thank you very much, Excellencies. My beloved student, actually what the Excellencies explained to us, even though the population of Belgium only 11 million, as big as Jakarta city, but the important position among the European countries as the Brussels, as the European Council, the center of the European Commission, the European Union of Council, European Parliament, and also the center of the NATO. Yeah? This is very important, and not only for the position, also economically, the Belgium is very important also. In the rank of the country, Belgium is number 6, the 6th of the European Union country, with the growth of GDP is around 3.8%, with the total of GDP is more than 400 billion US dollar. And now I think that the GDP per capita almost 25,000 euro, or more than 30,000 USD per capita. Compared with Indonesia, it's almost 9 or 8 times for Indonesian GDP. Besides that, the Belgium also important for not only for the European Union. The position of Belgium, like Indonesia and ASEAN. If Brussels or Belgium as the capital of Europe, Indonesia also as the capital of the permanent secretariat of ASEAN. With the biggest population in ASEAN, I think that Indonesia play the role important to the economic development in ASEAN. Especially if next year, in 2015, we are facing the ASEAN community. It means that we are now as one global nation in ASEAN. Maybe for you as a student of ITB is well known and not only in Indonesia but also in the ASEAN. You have advantage, and you have to maximize your advantage. In that case, if the international job for the ASEAN community starting next year become true. Okay, I think it's all the little bit of summary of the explanation of the excellencies Mr. Patrick Herman. Now, please give the question to excellencies and please identify yourself, your name, you come from the study program or the faculty and so on. Okay, please. The three questions first for the first session. Okay, one from my left side, and then you angkat tangan gak itu? Yang di belakang. Ya, okay. Second, and the third. From my right side. Okay, dua pertanyaan dulu ya, please.
My name is Generale. I am from informatical engineering. Okay, Mr. You said that European Union is not a problem, but is a solution. And I think in every event is always there and always exists failure. And is there any country in European Union that only became a consumer, not a producer? If so, what did they do to face European Union? And I ask that question because you know in Indonesia that we have a lot of citizens, but we still have a problem to produce product. And maybe after 1 month or 2 months in Indonesia, we will realize that so many stuff in Indonesia come from another country. And in the reality, the ASEAN community hasn't been started yet. And so what do you think about that? Okay, thank you.
Morning. My name is Akbar and my major is chemistry. Okay, I have a questions for Mr. Patrick. In Indonesia next year we are going to come up with AEC, Asian Economic Community in 2015. But learn from Belgium that as a member of European Union and see the European Union as a solution. But I think in Indonesia, AEC, there are still a lot of citizens in Indonesia that they don't know about the AEC. And not only Belgium that concerned to AEC, but also there are a lot of countries such as Japan and China to control in AEC and look at ASEAN as a one single market. And I think it is a trouble to Indonesia if we are not ready for that. And we have to compete. We have to compete with another country from not only from ASEAN but also from another country. So what should we do to come up with the AEC? Learn from Belgium as a member of European Union. Thank you.
Okay, please, Excellencies, 2 questions first.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your questions. They're actually two of the most important dimensions in any regional integration. The first one is goes actually to the heart and the philosophy of the internal market, which is very often seen from outside as a liberal project, a neoliberal project, based on the Ricardo theories that every part that free trade is good, free trade creates more trade, and every region specializes in what it's best at. But that is not what the European Union project is. The European Union is a project based on free trade and free movement, but also with a social or a social democratic dimension, which means that we're not talking about just a project of free movement, but a project that would also be based on solidarity. Because if you have freedom, and I'm not talking here on the human rights part, but just if you have economic freedom, without economic solidarity, what you were describing, the problems that you can have here in Indonesia, achieving your national internal market, but even more, that you will have even more, and that, going to the second question, achieving an internal market with countries with very different economic levels of development, like Laos, like Myanmar, is something very difficult, and that doesn't work if you do not have a number of checks and balances, and most of all, a number of solidarity measures. What can solidarity measures be? It is what we started creating in the European Union back in 1957, and before that for steel and coal. They're European funds that are helping the poorest regions catch up with the richest region. So whereby in the European Union you have two types of countries. Countries that give more to the Union than they get, and countries, of course, that receive much more money from the European Union than they get. This is the same thing as social security in a country. You are rich, you pay more taxes, and your taxes normally help the poorer part of the population find a job or survive between two jobs and get affordable health care. So that is what you need to have in every internal market. And this would be, of course, a major challenge for ASEAN, where the solidarity probably is a younger concept between ASEAN countries. So we have, for instance, in the European Union, have the Fund for Regional Development. Now the new countries joining have been traditionally much poorer. That was the case of Portugal, that was the case of Greece, certainly the case of the Eastern European Union countries. So the existing countries have invested billions in those countries. We have a fund for agriculture, we have a social fund. So the important thing in the European construction is not just a liberal economic project, it is a social project at the level of every individual. And all European countries have a sophisticated social security and healthcare system, but also between countries. Solidarity is necessary, otherwise in a free trade area, in a common market, the poorest parts are going to become poorer and poorer, and the richest parts of the region are going to thrive. So the advice or the evaluation is you can't just open up, you need to have solidarity, and that is what the European model is based on, and that is something that the ASEAN model will have to be based on in the long run. So the second question is very near that we do need more Europe. There is every step in the European construction has brought up more steps, going from the free trade to the customs union to the economic union, economic to financial to fiscal, because you need a level playing field between the different countries, also with social rectifications, as I said earlier. So there is a lot to be gained, but once again, also between the different countries, it can't be achieved immediately. If you just open your borders without having achieved the same level of economic and social development, you will actually have your customs union, your common market, creating even more inequality than it had. So the other thing, it has to be, and we come back also to the same assessment. You need to accompany your economic measures by social measures and by a large measure of solidarity. Otherwise, you are going to create more pain than gain. But if you do that properly, and I trust the Secretary General of ASEAN and ASEAN countries to do that, you have much more gain than pain.
Okay, actually, if we learn from the success of Belgium as a small country, but with the strategic position in European Union, and compare with our position of Indonesia, we like many in the policy, in the investment, as well as in the international trade, because facing the ASEAN community for next year, maybe Indonesia is like in how to adhere the investment, foreign investment from abroad, from another developed countries to Indonesia, as well as how to increase, to enhance our international trade and so on. But actually, as Excellencies Patrick Herman told us that the Belgium have the big universities. Maybe you interest to pursue your graduate study in Belgium. In Belgium, there is 3 universities, big, and we have the collaboration. ITB has the collaboration with the 3 big universities in Belgium. This is the Leuven University, Catholic Leuven University, KUL, and then the Antwerp University, and Leeds University. Also Cap University. And we from SPM, we have the collaboration with Leeds University in Islamic economics, Sharia economics. You know that even Belgium is very liberal, very free trade and so on. But the Belgium now developed the product halal. As you see in the Wallonia region, the south of Belgium, the Wallonia region, they develop the agriculture industry and so on from the industry from the agriculture product, and they develop halal product. And now starting to export to other countries. Even though maybe next year or even next month, the product come to Indonesia with the stamp of our product from Belgium. Okay, any other question? Maybe you want to ask if any scholarship from Royal Belgium and so on to pursue the graduate program. Again, please. Okay, I think all the students are satisfied with your explanation. Excellencies.
I have been either very confusing or very clear, but I hope that it was the second one. Thank you very much.
Okay, give a big applause for Excellencies. Ambassador. Thank you very much. And I think this is not the first, but maybe the second or the third opportunity that you give us lecturing or guest lecturers courses like this. Okay, thank you very much, and I give the panitia.
Next is the souvenir award for the speaker, which will be delivered by Rector of Institut Teknologi Bandung. We kindly invite Professor Ahmaloka, PhD, to begin.
Let's go. Oh,